Now, John.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to Council's ordinary meeting. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay respects to elders past and present. This meeting is live streamed on Council's website to allow the community to follow Council debates and decisions. Members of the public participating in a meeting agree to have their image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded and publicly broadcast. Snowy Valleys Council does not accept liability for any defamatory remarks or inappropriate comments that are made during the course of a meeting. Any part of the meeting that is held in closed session will not be streamed. Please ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or are in silent mode for the duration of the meeting, and no recording of voice or images is permitted. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the area using the nearest exit. If participating in the meeting from an alternative venue, please enact the evacuation plan for that location if required. Council is currently operating under the temporary provisions of Section 447A of the Local Government Act, which allows for online meetings, and the provisions of the Act take precedence over any conflicts with the adopted Snowy Valleys Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Okay, apologies and leave of absence. Now we have one from the Mayor. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Ham, Councillor Benjamin. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Councillor Benjamin and Councillor Isman. Councillor Benjamin.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in relation to report 11.6 due to having a professional relationship and have employed the applicant in the past, and I will remain in the meeting during discussion and will participate in the voting.
And Councillor Isman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a non-pecuniary interest in forget the number of the time. General Manager, can you help me, please?
10.8.
Thank you. 10.8. I am a member of the Rotary Club of Batlow, and I was part of the group writing the grant that report relates to, and I will be not participating in the debate and will be removing myself from the room.
Okay. I'll remind councillors of those pecuniary interests when they arise. We've had public forum. Mr Arentz and Mr Gray spoke prior to the commencement of the meeting in relation to the matter 11.6. Item 5, confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the 15th of October, the ordinary policy and strategy meeting, the 29th, and business arising. So do we have a mover for the minutes of the 15th? Councillor Smith, Councillor Cross. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Is there any business arising out of those? Councillor Ham.
I'd just like to bring everyone's attention to 11.2 about the Orney Hall reconstruction, and just to follow up on that there's been really great news that the Orney Hall is now going to be fully funded under grants from Resilience New South Wales, and congratulations to the very polite, respectful advocacy of the Orney Committee, and it will be a great resource for many decades to come.
Excellent. 5.2.
Just one moment.
Oh, sorry, Councillor. Yes, isn't it?
13.4 on the Batlow Cannery lease proposal. Could we have a quick update on whether that particular proposal, the lease part of the Batlow Cannery, has gone ahead? I believe it has stopped.
Mr CEO.
Yes, through the mail, just to ask Mr Korsh to give us an update on that one.
For you, Mr Deputy Mayor, Councillor Isselman. Yeah, currently we have received some advice that it won't be proceeding. We're still in the process of confirming that. Once confirmed, we'll refer that back to council.
Thanks, Mr. Kelch. Any further business arising out of the ordinary minutes, 15th of October? All right, in relation to 5.2, the ordinary policy and strategy meeting on the 29th of October. Do I have a mover and seconder for those minutes? Councillor Ham, Councillor Cross, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No. Item 6 is correspondence or petitions. Don't understand there to be any. Is that correct?
That's correct.
7, notice of motion, notice of rescission. No mayoral minute. Item 8. Item 9, urgent business without notice. There being no urgent business, then I'll move to the governance and financial reports, 10.1. The annual report 2019-20, there's 3 recommendations there. You have a mover and a seconder?
Electronic
Councillor
page
Ham?
22, councillors.
Seconder for that, Councillor Isselman. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ham?
Oh, just to say, I've had a look at the draft annual report. It's been very well presented. Every year it seems to go up a level and in presentation and in clarity of how it's presented. Congratulations to the staff.
Any further speakers? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, 10.2, delegation of authority to sign statement. Have 4 recommendations there. Councillor Smith, you're moving those. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Benjamin? Councillor Smith. You're on mute there, Councillor Smith.
Sorry,
You're right.
just it's a procedural matter and there's no other comment to be made.
Okay, any further comments? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That's unanimous. 10.3, the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee Annual Report. I have 2 recommendations there. Do you have a mover? Councillor Cross and Councillor Ham seconding. Councillor Cross.
It was a very productive meeting that we had at the end of the year, and I note in the report that the chair complimented Snowy Valleys Council on the growing maturity of the reports and how it was identifying and managing risk. So I think that gives us great comfort to know that we have this forensic analysis of the processes that are in place. I think thank you very much to Glenys for her forensic analysis of our policies and procedures and risks and financial management.
If there's no further discussion, I'll put...
Mr. Mayor, we've just got the chair of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee in on the meeting. If you wanted to ask her if she'd like to make any.
Is that for the next one as well? Or?
More for this annual report. Glenys, you're just on mute there.
I'm right now. I should be right now. Thank you. Okay, so do you want me to talk to the report at all? Okay, I think it's all fairly self-explanatory there. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor
Glenys, I'll make a comment and maybe you could expand on it. That having been on the Audit and Risk Committee for 2 years and then stood down as you were coming in on chair, I am very aware that a lot of the processes have been tightened up from where it was when we were the brand new Snowy Valleys Council. And maybe you know better than me, just to do a little bit of a timeline of where we were, because it wasn't a great place to where we are now.
Yes. I suppose my experience with the Audit Committee starts with the administration period, really, and taken us right through to here. So I have certainly seen a huge leap in our, I suppose, discipline, our governance, our risk management in terms of the council, etc. So there's been enormous work in policies. There's been enormous work in getting our governance and risk management framework together. I think probably and also too, I suppose, the discipline in running our meetings and the expectation of what we want in terms of reports and information from people who are presenting the various reports, etc., to the meeting. But I think probably the next step is going to be in terms of our internal audit function. I think that we need a bit more maturity in relation to that, maturity in terms of our attitude to audit, internal audit, our attitude to, well, I suppose the culture within the organisation, and I suppose not seeing it as a impost, or whether it be financial or whether it be resource, whatever, it's part and parcel, like risk management, it's part and parcel of our everyday work. And I think that's a challenge for any organisation I've been in and involved in the same sort of area. And I think it's going to be a particular challenge for councils in the future, particularly probably regional councils as they come on board with the new framework that the government is trying to put in place from about March next year. And there'll be regulations supporting that as well. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge for us in the future in terms of ARIC. But I think our ARIC is way, way down the track in complying with the largest percentage of all the requirements that the state governments are looking towards in terms of our governance, risk and internal audit framework. So I think we're in a very, very good place at this point in time as to where we are now. But yes.
Where would you like to go?
Oops, sorry, my watch is talking to me. Take it off, actually. Yes, so I think that I think also too, one of the other challenges for ARIC is to be flexible and adapt to the environment in which we have faced in the last 12 months. Well, probably 18 months, I suppose, too, with all the different things that are impacting on the council, and which has obviously an impact on ARIC as well and its role as well. So I think we've come out of that quite well at this stage. And I think that there's a good future for ARIC. And I must say, I think that the thing that I've seen most important, I think in terms of the governance and risk management framework at this point, from where I came from, coming in as in the administration period in the audit committee to now, has been a superb change and improvement from what I've seen.
Well, having seen you in a meeting, Glenys, and how you question and your knowledge, I want to personally thank you for your input.
Okay, thanks, Julia. Thanks.
All right. I noticed in the following recommendation, Glenys, that we will probably formally acknowledge you, but whilst you're on the phone, I think it would be prudent to say, you know, that on behalf of council, that we're very grateful for the stewardship and the direction that you've been able to take us in relation to making this essential part of our governance a really important and worthwhile process that the councillors and the staff and the community will benefit from. So you've been an integral part of that as the chairperson, and although it's disappointing to see you go. I suppose all things come to an end, and you know we wish you every success in the future endeavours, and look forward to seeing you around town.
And can I just say to John, none of the improvements could happen if you didn't have a council that supported you, and also the CEO and the staff as well. So those improvements do not happen without all those people supporting the AREC and the direction that we're headed in, certainly.
Thanks, Magus.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we've got two recommendations there. So if there's nothing further, I'll put that to council. So all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thanks, Glenys.
Okay, thank you.
In relation to 10.4, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee membership for 2021, we've got 5 recommendations there. Do we have a mover? Councillor Cross and Councillor Benjamin. Councillor Cross.
Yes, I too endorse that. It's been absolutely wonderful to have Glenys on board to guide us with our AREC. I'd also like to note that we did interview Carolyn Rosetta Walsh within that time frame, so we can not ask her to join our committee. She certainly comes highly recommended, and she actually has local connections. So I think that will be a real asset to our AREC.
Councillor Ham?
Can I must admit it, but we did advertise for this position, I presume. Caroline, yes.
Yes, we did. We interviewed and we had a formal application, a formal interview process at the same time as we put Melissa Melanie on. So yes, it was fully done well.
Did you get many applicants?
I think we had, sorry, I will have to refer to Shelley for that one.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Ham, there was a competitive field of which 3 applicants were interviewed, and there was a recommendation made at the end of last year that Carolyn Rosetta Walsh be placed on the eligibility list, which has prompted, of course, circumvented another onerous recruitment process. Yeah.
Ah, excellent. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, there's nothing further. I'll put that to council. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Welcome Stephen Walker as the chair. He's obviously played a very essential part of our AREC over the last 12 months, and he's obviously going to play a great role in our governance from now on in, and has certainly got big shoes to fill in Glenys's absence, but I'm sure Stephen will perform that task with a great deal of passion. All right, 10.5, the future direction of council committees. There's 6 recommendations there. Do we, Councillor Smith? Just on mute.
Yes.
You're moving those?
Yes.
Do we have a second? Councillor Ham?
Could I suggest we go into committee?
You can suggest that. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Pritchard. All those in favour of going into committee?
Unanimous?
I think that's unanimous. It's
yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. It's the screens are freezing up. We'll say that's unanimous. Councillor Ham, you've got the floor.
Oh, I think it's over to Councillor Smith. Sorry, I bumped him. You go, Cor.
Thank you. Yes, look, the whole issue of committees has been a little bit controversial.
Councillor Smith, you're on mute.
Okay. The whole issue of council committees has been somewhat aired, if you like, through the Boundaries Commission inquiry. And there have been a lot of negative comments about the process that we have undertaken about that, or from that inquiry. But I would just like to say that this is a very, very positive process that we have undertaken, and that as a result of this process, there is going to be a lot more sense and streamlining of committees. Although a number of committees are to be dissolved, that is appropriate because they are not functioning as council committees at this point in time, and we're just really recognising what the actual fact is. One of the issues is, of course, governance, and that has, we've just been talking about that with the AREC. One of the statements that I had heard during this inquiry was that the former councils had given a lot less attention to governance, and that we have, in our time in office, have given too much attention and cost to the issue of governance. I refute that statement very strongly and say that governance is probably one of the most important issues that we have to deal with. And in so doing, the disbanding of some of the committees is in the interests of good governance. And the main issue for the committees themselves is that they will continue to be supported by council. They're not going to be just dissolved and left in the lurch. Council, under the arrangements that we have in place, is going to be continuing to support those committees and look after them in the most appropriate way possible. So from that perspective, I totally endorse all of the points 1 to 6 that are in our recommendations today.
Councillor Ham?
Thank you, Cor. You covered that pretty well. But just people like the Tumbarumba Historical Society, which have some insecurities about their venue, their equipment, and all the artefacts that they have, and the wonderful museum they have. I am hearing positives back on how well the council are working, and I suggest for everyone on the committees that are to dissolve by June 2021 to use us as councillors, if need be, to help with the negotiation, and not be afraid to put your hand up for assistance in kind and financial, should that need be, to keep your committee going.
Can I ask a question? Can we add to this list of committees?
Through the chair, if I may, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The resolution has been moved and seconded. So if you have a proposal, you're in committee now, suggest you have a discussion. And if you would like some amendments to that, then it's up to the mover or seconder to either agree or disagree to that. And if it's a disagree, then you may move an amendment to the motion.
Well, I'd like to move that we establish a Tumut River Walk Committee. Was the Wetlands Committee has expired, then there's a big area, and I think that the community wants to have more input into what's happening down in that part of the world and what the future plans are there. And I think we need a community committee to oversee it. There have been some developments in the wind, which I'm sure that the general community may not be in favour of, and I think that it's a jewel in the crown of Tumut, and I think we should have a community committee.
if I may, through the chair, Councillor Pritchard, do you believe that that might fit into one of the other committees? We've got our committee listing that we're going to evaluate delegates on, etc. I believe that that purpose may actually fit into one of those existing groups that provide some advice to council.
Such as?
We'll go through that list in a few minutes when we get to that item, but there are various committees around gardens and providing volunteer input, etc. to the
Oh, no, I think this is more important, quite frankly. As you well know, that the council's been approached recently to do some major redevelopment of the Pioneer Park. And we've had that labyrinth put in. I don't think the community doesn't realise what it was all about before it happened. I want to make sure that sort of thing doesn't happen again, but also looking at the future development of it all. I think it's important enough for us to have a separate committee.
Mr. Chair, can I ask the question of Councillor Pritchard? Are you suggesting a committee of council, or are you suggesting an independent group?
Well, a council committee with representation of councillors and members of the community selected because of their interest. How it's administered, I'm not sure about, but I think we need to have a closer handle on it. I mean, there's a lot of exercise equipment put in along the river, which I wasn't sure about. I think we need to have a closer handle.
Councillor Pritchard, it would be perhaps an opportunity to maybe have a report on that at the next meeting and having all that sort of substance, or possibly even workshop on it about what's involved, because I mean it would be hard to sort of get everything into that into what you're talking about without understanding what the framework is for it, with all the exercise equipment and all that sort of stuff, because I'm not very familiar with it myself. So
that's the very reason why we need to have a committee with the local people. I don't think we can. I think we have to do something like this.
Councillor Usman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I first of all would like to say that this particular report is quite important to all our communities, and it's really important for us as councillors to thank all the committee members and the volunteers who are on these committees, who are now choosing to go to be independent committees and stand alone. And I think that's a remarkable effort, and thank you to our staff on council as well for bringing this through that process, and it still should continue to the end of June. But I think what Councillor Pritchard's bringing up is perhaps a reason to think about some of the work that we do as councillors and how we actually communicate with the community about issues to do with their towns and their villages and the development within those towns. And it doesn't always need to have a committee, but it does mean that, as Councillor Pritchard is pointing out, once development looks to be happening, we need to be very diligent on making sure that it's taking the recommendations from the community. I don't necessarily think that needs to have always to be done through a committee.
Mr. Chairperson, we can certainly bring that matter back to a council workshop and looking at our governance process for committees and our other engagement activities with the community, and provide some information to the councillors to inform whether you would like a future report on that particular matter Councillor Pritchard has raised.
Would you be happy with that, Councillor Pritchard, so that we can get all that information and do it correctly rather than sort of on the hop? You're just on mute there, Councillor Pritchard.
I feel very strongly about it because I set the whole thing up originally, and it's been a long, hard struggle to get it where it is now. And the Pioneer Park is part of the Riverwalk, and I don't think it should be considered separately. I just want to make sure that we have a focus on that Riverwalk as is at present and where it should go in the future. I don't want to dilute it down too much.
Yeah, I think everyone's in agreement with what you're saying, but I think probably just needs time to get it to a point where we've got something to work with rather than doing something ad hoc now.
Well, I'd like us not to do any development down there until this is sorted out. That's what I'm very anxious about.
We
Can
certainly
I-
won't be doing any development till we get this in order, Mr. CEO.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wright?
I'd just like to, you know, everybody be aware that, you know, with Tumbarumba Historical Society is really concerned about their the facilities they use at the, you know, the museum and the Visitor Information Centre, and the memorandum of understanding we have with them is we have to make sure it's really covers all aspects and supports them how we really want it, you know, because, you know, they've put so much work into it, such a huge facility and such a great broadcast for Tumbarumba. I think it's vitally important that we support them in every way we possibly can. One thing that really concerns me, the only thing that really concerns me is, you know, resolve it, and then, which I don't think is a bad thing, but we must have our memorandum of understanding there really strong and supportive.
Councillor Cross?
Yeah, look, I think we need to really appreciate the work that the staff has put into this. I know it's been 18 months in the making, and it's been as a result of the 2016 legislation, but a legislative requirement, but it's also been very challenging for communities. And I know the Talbingo Progress Association has really, really struggled with getting to the point where they know which way they want to go. It seems that insurance is the sticking point, and I think we need to reassure the communities that they will not be left out in the cold, that there will be a transition process, and that we will be supporting them to to go through this, that they will not lose their representation, their councillor representation. But I also think that oh, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought for the moment. But I do think it needs to be emphasised that that 355 committees are about looking after a council facility, and I'm not quite sure that that was actually made clear to a lot of those committees. And certainly that's been a sticking point for the Talbingo Progress Association.
Is it possible, Councillor Isselman, you're on mute.
I was going to move that we go out of committee, but that's fine if you've got something else to say.
I was just going to maybe ask one more point. I think Councillor Ham might also. Do you want to go first, Councillor Ham? I
was just going to actually compliment the staff. The first document we saw was a 46-page, quite rambly type document, and I get why it was that way. And now it's down to 28 pages. It's concise. It's been well formatted. It's looking so much better. And I just want to publicly thank the staff for their work on that and acknowledge that it is still a draft and people can still comment on it.
Councillor Smith.
Yes, look, I've put forward or nominated this particular item because I think it's an important one, and the restructure of all our committees is important. The one that Councillor Pritchard has mentioned, I would fully support another separate discussion about a committee to look after the wetlands and the river walk and so on, because I also think that that's a very important part of our infrastructure in the Tumut region in particular. However, it doesn't fit into this particular item because this is to do with restructuring existing committees. So if Councillor Pritchard wants to do something about the wetlands, I would fully support him to do that, and if he wants to put forward a motion, I'd certainly be glad to second it.
I'm happy to put a motion that we set up a Tumut River Walk Committee. How it's done, or I'm not fussed about it as long as we have a committee with general people, councils on it, and general community people on it. But we need to have the decisions regarding the wetlands floated through a representative community committee before they're implemented.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, if I may, through yourself, would prefer that we looked at our governance documents around this and provided some information back to councillors. But given that there's a motion already moved, maybe the movers and seconders might want to include an additional recommendation to provide further information to councillors on that and consider a future report on the matter.
You'd be happy with that, Councillor Pritchard?
Yeah, as long as we get the results,
Yeah.
I don't care
Yeah,
what
that's
happens.
Can I just ask, because the thing that worries me with this, and obviously there's a lot of work gone into it, and I, like probably many other councillors, have had a number of telephone calls about it. And, you know, it sounds like different councillors have obviously been contacted about different committees when, you know, Councillor Hams obviously and Councillor Wright have been phoned about the Historical Society. Myself and others have been contacted about Camp Hudson, for instance. So I think the possibility of there being a bit of hysteria about what's happening here is highly likely, and I think it would be a reasonable thing, Mr. CEO, if perhaps one of the staff could perhaps give an example of say, the Camp Hudson situation, and you know what the reality is around that. You know, the lease is about to expire. They're going to be encouraged to take out a, with the assistance of council, be encouraged to take out an independent management option with the assistance of council. So it's you know, the reality is the national parks in relation to that particular committee hold the lease. We're not the owner, and the likelihood is that we would have to go to public tender, from what I'm told, as a council to even have a chance of getting that renewed in our favour, and even then, you know, it's up to the determination of national parks, not us. So you know, I think that would be a reasonable thing to explain rather than.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I could ask Mrs. Jones to provide an update to councillors on the Camp Hudson situation, because as you have indicated, there is it is Crown lands and there is a lease arrangement there, etc., which complicates that matter a little bit further.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you. You've actually pretty much explained it beautifully yourself. So it's good that there's a good understanding of what's happening in this space. I think picking up on the sentiment of councillors at this juncture, it's really important to re-emphasise the work that we're doing will take us over the next 6 months, and it's about setting these committees up for success in what they do and the services that they provide to the community. In terms of Camp Hudson, the Deputy Mayor is absolutely correct. Currently, Council holds a lease with National Parks, which will expire in November next year. We've received preliminary advice through many conversations with National Parks, between Council and National Parks and the Committee and National Parks and the Committee and Council, that there is all likelihood that when the lease expires, Parks under their new operating model would need to go to market for the leasee. So it's not an automatic renewal process. And that there's every chance that, you know, Council, if we had the appetite, that we would potentially not get that. So in terms of being able to move that committee into an independent incorporated body and give them the capacity and help them skill to the ability that when that lease becomes available, should they want to, you know, put an expression of interest for it themselves, then they're in a good position to be able to do that. There seems to be a bit of legacy around Camp Hudson. Totally understand the community sentiment. It's just, we've got to the point as a council that it's no longer a good fit for us. We potentially, the lease will expire in November, and, you know, council would need to, in this current situation around sustainability, see whether or not we would want to become the leaseholder of an asset that is not ours. Yeah. Does that help, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's just very transparent to sort of let the public know that these are the reasons why these decisions are being made.
Absolutely.
And you know, furthermore, there's also some of these committees have got different sums of money in their accounts, and so, you know, I think, without speaking on behalf of council, I think the intention would be to ensure that, you know, that process of the money that's in those accounts, you know, that would have to be fairly adjudicated on, you know, to assist these committees so that they can become independent.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, completely agree. So part of this report to council indicates the process that we'll be looking at undertaking in terms of being able to transfer fixed assets, sorry, not fixed assets, non-fixed assets. So that's your incidentals, and then financial assets back to community groups as they transition to incorporated model. And obviously that will trigger future reports to council if we're talking about transfers out of reserve. Absolutely transparent process.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Pitcher.
This is not directly related to what this is all about, but it's about the insurances for these groups. I'm a member of the Potters Group, not on the executive at all, but we raise about $1,000 a year on road stalls and so forth to pay for our public liability insurance. That's all it does. And you know, this year there are no street stalls, so I guess we're not particularly fussed about it. But I'm sure there are a lot of community groups around our shire, around our council area, who are stressed by it. They can't raise the money. There are no raffles being held, and there's no people outside the Coles to ambush you and so forth. And whether we could, until the end of the COVID virus, get government relief for the public liability insurance, say about $1,000 per each year until the COVID virus, for that purpose, until the COVID virus is resolved.
I couldn't agree more, Councillor Pritchard. I think we've raised previously that, you know, when you look at sporting groups, for instance, the impost on families in relation to, you know, say, for instance, basketball or netball or cricket or whatever the case may be, or even, you know, your local CWA holding a store, you know, there's these costs. So whether we could advocate for some legislation which allows council to provide some insurance through a broker or something that covers all these events rather than playing multiple times for the same thing, you know, it would make sense. I mean, the only people who seem to be making any money are the insurance companies.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I have a draft addition to the recommendation that's moved and seconded. If you'd like me to share that on the screen for council's consideration.
That's fine.
Councillors, see that okay? Is that big enough to view?
It is for me.
So just in blue at the bottom is the addition there. So the council workshop the matter about the addition of a Tumut Wetland/Riverwalk Committee, providing detail around the possible governance arrangements that are available to council and consistent with our current governance framework, and assess whether a further report be provided to council.
Well, I'm happy with that.
Me too.
Councillor Pritchard? You're on mute.
I'm happy. Move.
All right. Have we got a mover and a seconder to go out of committee? Councillor Wright? Councillor Isselman? All those in favour? It's unanimous. We now have a 7 recommendations. I'll put those. All those in favour? Against? That's unanimous.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, could we have another look at that? Because there was a delay in hands up and I'm not sure if we didn't have some people voting against. I'm sorry about that, but we just need to be have clarity.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if everyone would like to show their hands again very clearly on the screen, the Mayor can do another count there. Councillor Benjamin?
Sorry, is this for or against?
For. So that's 7 for, 1 against. Is that correct?
And you have to declare the one against.
Councillor Isselman. Sorry, Councillor Benjamin.
Thank
Jeannie,
you.
did you note that?
We've got that down. Thank
Yep.
you.
10.6. Dissolve the Tumbertrek Committee. 3 recommendations there. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Isselman, yes. And Councillor Wright. Sorry, the screen's they're stopping and starting. Any discussion?
Just sufficient, if I may, as a mover of this one, to say that I think this is a remarkable council committee for advocacy, and that there's a potential in the future to look at it from one SVC and not necessarily Tumba as a project for the council. But I really support this group for council to be working with.
Anything further? Councillor Wright? You're on mute there, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I've been on the committee for a long time, and I just feel sorry that it's going, but yeah, it really is a committee of council anyway, so it's just like a formality, I guess. As long as we make sure that we have plenty of independent people rather than just councillors and council employees on the committee, so that we can, on the ongoing committee, so that people feel like they're involved. There's some people in our community been involved in it for a real lot of years, and we should make sure we keep including them and recognise how much they have put into it over the years.
Mm. Councillor Ham?
I agree with Councillor Wright, and I would actually like that our recommendation 4 to reflect that, because, you know, I mean, that sounds quite harsh, dissolving the Tumbertrek Committee, but it's been just so fabulous and achieved such a lot, and particularly in terms of advocacy, which is why it was initiated. And when Councillor Isselman does talk about, you know, it's an SVC thing, certainly when we've been walking the last 3 years, we've been discussing everyone within the whole of the Snowy Valleys Council area. So I would like a recommendation 4 is to continue having community consultation, active community consultation when Tumba Trek is being developed or decided.
Through the chair, Councillor Ham, given the discussion in the workshop regarding this matter, I have drafted an additional item if the councillors would like to consider that.
That'd be excellent, thank you.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, are you happy for me to share the screen on that?
Yep. Are the mover and seconder happy with the addition?
Yep.
Yes, that's fine.
And Councillor Ham, that fits your?
Maybe.
Yeah, not entirely. Continue to engage with the community. Just sounds like I want people like Lorraine Hurlston and Tonia Beckett still to be actually on that consultative discussion. Continue to engage with the community. It sounds to me like you'll put an article in the paper. Could it be just a little bit more succinct? Actively.
I think we have to be careful and recognise that when we're passing these resolutions that they're not for just now, but they're for the future. So when we're talking about things in the future, it doesn't depend on individuals, it depends on the community.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. But within that, I just want to make sure that there is directly with people within the community that you speak, like to actively engage is just so broad. Like at the moment we have Councillor Wright. You know, he knows the area so well, and he can talk very well about where the walk can be. You know, if Councillor Wright is no longer a councillor, we still want that sort of direct consultation with the community.
Through the chair, Councillor Ham, is there some other words that you would like added there? I've just added in actively and directly to say that it's not going to be just a broad engagement of a notice up on our website and a letter in the newsletter. We can certainly hear your intent there and agree with your intent that the community members do need to be involved, and we can take that forward. And I believe that the resolution is broad enough for us to implement your intent.
Thank you.
I agree.
All right, if there's nothing further, Mr.
Deputy Mayor, the Councillor Schmidt might have a question there, I think. I'll just stop sharing the screen so it's a bit easier for you to see.
Yes, I did want to ask the question, if that's okay, Mr. Chair, that what was the reason that this committee ceased to exist? We're here going to vote on whether to remove it or to dissolve it officially, but it says here that the committee is no longer active. Why is that committee no longer active?
If I may, through the chair, so the most recent event was essentially organised in the way that Councillor Ham has spoken now, where a number of people were engaged, and it was run as a council event as opposed to a community event. And in council's normal process around running an event for the community and the councillors, we have engaged with specific people who have the specific knowledge, and the intention is to continue on that process.
Would it be appropriate in that case to suggest a working group of those people who are interested in being involved?
That would depend on the governance framework around that. Could I, Mr. Deputy Mayor, ask Mrs. Jones to comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Smith, a working group would be the most appropriate structure if we were to convene some sort of a forum. So it would have a specific start and end point and come together for a specific purpose to assist council staff, I guess, to develop and deliver the event.
That sounds good to me.
Which is really in effect what we've done in the past.
Yeah, that's right. Except we've called it a Section 355 committee in the past, which was not correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yep.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, maybe we could change the wording. If I could share the screen again, maybe we could change the wording to include the direct words working group in that resolution. Just
It'd be
share
greatly
that.
appreciated.
Sorry for the backwards and forwards in here. Continue to actively engage with the community. All right. Through a council type. Councillors see that okay? So I'll read that out. The council continue to actively engage with the community through a council working group to ensure the event continues as an opportunity for both councillors and the community to advocate for the community needs in the Snowy Valleys in an open and less formal conversation.
All good.
Terrific.
Okay, you've got a mover and a seconder there, I believe.
Yep.
Councillor Isselman and Councillor Wright. If they agree to those changes, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
With that. All right, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? All those in favour?
Just, councillors, if we can just really clearly centre the screen, hold their hands up, it makes it a bit easier for the count. Thank you.
That's unanimous.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, my apologies. Just a clarification on the future matter, the previous matter 10.5, future direction of council committees. Just to save us in the future, the resolution, I think there may have been a statement about the 7 items, but there were actually 8 items. So could we just clarify that the vote that the councillors had in regards to that matter were regarding all 8 items, which included the additional sentence, which I can put back up on the screen if that provides some clarity. And I'll put that back up on the screen. I'm not entirely sure, so I felt it better that we provide that clarity now than have an error in the minutes. So that's all 8 items. Councillors are clear that when we adopted that item, we were adopting all 8 items there. Can you just show your hands whether that was your intent? Councillor, yes, okay, I've got everyone there indicating that was the intent, so we'll clarify that in a minute. Thank you. Sorry for having to clarify that matter. Okay, 10.8, sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
10.8 or 7?
10.7.
10.7, sorry.
Okay, dissolve the Tumut Community Gardens Committee. Have 4 recommendations there. Do we have a mover? Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Isselman. Any discussion?
Not from me. I think it's just quite clear that it's changing to a working group, which is what we're after. And we thank the members of the committee in the past for their efforts.
Councillor Pritchard?
I set that up some years ago and it's gone along quite steadily ever since. It's very small, but it's quite active. The only question I have, do they need public liability insurance it's being on council land, or what do we do about that?
Mr. Seah?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I might ask Mrs. Jones to comment on that, please.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Pritchard, we're just basically changing the operating model. They'll still come, because they're still working on a council asset, they are still covered by council's insurance as volunteers rather than as a committee. Yeah. Does that clarify the question? Yeah.
Excellent. If there's nothing further, I'll put those 4 recommendations. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. I just can't see Kate.
Yes, Kate's got a hand up. Yes, that's
Okay.
all councillors with the hand up.
All right, that's unanimous. 10.8, dissolve the Tumbarumba Men's Shed Committee. There's 7 recommendations there. Councillor Wright and Councillor Cross. You're on mute, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I think this is a really good one. They've approached us to move away from the 355 and do their own thing, and they're all covered by their own insurance with the Men's Shed Association and everything. I think it's a great outcome for us. I believe the memorandum of understanding they're all happy with that too. We really should support it. They've really done a great job there, and they're I believe willing to assist other people along the way. So I think it's all good. It's a great outcome for us.
Councillor Hand.
So is it just looking at recommendation number 4? Council have actually paid the Men's Shed $25,000 for their assets.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, Councillor Ham, we're donating their assets back to them. So the asset list was their tools, their equipment, the bits and pieces that they needed. Yeah. So that's not the cash. That's the actual physical asset. Cash is in recommendation number 3.
Yep. Terrific. Got it. Thank you.
That's okay.
Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor.
Councillors.
Yeah, just a very quick if I may, through you, very big compliment to Mrs. Jones and all her team. This is a great template and a great model for other men's sheds to use, in particular the Batlow Men's Shed, which is just setting up, and can use this as a very clear and very precise template for a handover when the Rotary Club has got that established. And I do thank her for her work that she's done in this area.
All right. If there's nothing further there, I'll put those 7 recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's unanimous. 10.9, dissolution of SVC Children's Services Committee. Do we have a mover? Councillor Ham. Councillor Wright. Councillor Ham.
I was part of this committee when it started in 2002. It was just after Karkula Children's Centre had opened, and it was a great committee. It had the principals from the school attend, the maternal health nurse, the playgroup head, and it was very active. But as time went on, and yeah, the reading day was one of the things that came out of it. But as time went on, there was no longer a driver to drive this, and it went by the wayside. Councillor Cross and I are very involved in the Snorri Valleys Children's Services Committee, which is separate from council completely. So I have no trouble with this being dissolved.
Any further comments? Councillor Smith.
Just to be clear, what Councillor Ham's saying is that there is, in fact, a replacement, or those needs are being met by another organisation. We're not just dumping them. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a committee of like-minded people and colleagues getting together. It's under no incorporated body or whatever. It's just saying on the third Tuesday of a term at 10 a.m. we get together and we meet and we discuss what's happening in children's services. And should we need to do funding, one of the preschools or bodies are always happy to put their hands up to auspice us.
If I could just add to that too, Councillor Schmidt, it's actually a much broader base. It involves all of the childcare services within Snowy Valleys Council, and it provides a really great opportunity for discussing any issues or any training needs. And I note that Councillor Ham did organise a very special event last September when we had a conference for the early childhood educators, which was extremely successful. So I think this committee is a much more powerful voice and a necessary one.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't leave an impression or a perception that we were just dissolving a committee and getting rid of it.
Thanks, Cor. We wouldn't let that happen.
I'm sure you wouldn't.
All right, if there's nothing further, I'll put those two recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 10.10, committees and nomination of delegates. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that?
The Mayor, Deputy Mayor, I can share the item here and go through the detail of that, given what Council has workshopped on the matter. But you will need a mover and a seconder first to just clarify that the attachment doesn't have it all filled in.
Councillor Wright and Councillor Smith.
Share the screen. Would you like me to read these as we go through?
Can we enlarge it a little bit?
Can do. How's that? Is that better, Councillor Smith?
Yep, I can read it.
Okay, the Adelong Showgrounds Committee. So the additions are marked in there. So the Deputy Mayor as the delegate and Councillor Ham as the alternate. No changes to the Batlow Development League Camp Hudson Management Committee, adding the Deputy Mayor as the delegate and Councillor Ham as the alternate. The Christmas and Achievement Committee, adding Councillor Cross as the alternate. The Friends of the Stockwell Gardens Committee, adding Councillor Smith as the alternate. The Rock the Turf Committee, and adding Councillor Cross as the delegate and the Deputy Mayor as the alternate. The Rosewood Community Shed Committee, adding Councillor Ham as the alternate. The Chimmet District Community Transport Service, adding the Deputy Mayor as the delegate. Chimmet Community Gardens Committee, adding Councillor Cross as the alternate. The Aboriginal Liaison Committee, adding Councillor Cross as the alternate. The Audit Risk and Improvement Committee is just clarifying those two councillors there. The Australia Day Committee, adding Councillor Cross as the alternate there. The Climate Change Adaptation Committee, which is a new committee, adding Councillor Pritchard as the delegate and Councillor Cross as the alternate to that committee. The Chief Executive Officer Review Committee, just clarifying the names of the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor in there. The Chimmet Aerodrome Committee, adding Councillor Ham as the alternate. The Chimmet Sale Yards Committee, adding Councillor Hayes as the alternate. The Snowy Valleys Community Grants Assessment Panel, adding the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Wright to those committees as full members. The Tumba Showgrounds User Group, adding Councillor Ham as the alternate. The Friends of the Tumut Wetlands Committee, adding Councillor Smith as the alternate. The Tumut Railway Station Precinct, adding Councillor Smith as the alternate. The Adelong Progress Association in external committees, adding Councillor Larder, the Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Hayes, and Councillor Smith as the alternate. Was taking Councillor Hayes out there. Sorry, I might have the wrong version of that. Councillor's happy to take Councillor Hayes out of there? Yes.
Yep.
Brindabella Economic Link Group, the Mayor as the delegate and Councillor Cross as the alternate. The Floodplain Risk Management Committee, adding Councillor Smith as the alternate. The Joint Regional Planning Panels, adding Councillor Hayes as the alternate. The Local Emergency Management Committee, adding Councillor Hayes as the alternate. The Manus Correctional Centre Community Consultative Committee, adding Councillor Smith as the alternate. The Riverina Murray Weeds Committee, adding Councillor Hayes as the alternate. The RMS Consultative Committee, adding Councillor Larder as the alternate. The Softwoods Working Group, adding Councillor Hayes.
No, that was adding Councillor Ham. And because Councillor Hayes is already there in his capacity as a mayor.
Sorry, councillors, I might have the wrong version here. So, there's 3 councillors there. So Councillor Hayes and Councillor Wright as the delegates and Councillor Ham as the alternate. Is that how you would like it?
Yep.
Yes, okay. Southwest Regional Waste Management Group, Councillor Cross as the alternate. Tumut Chamber of Commerce, Councillor Cross as the delegate, Councillor Benjamin as the alternate. Tumba Chamber of Commerce, adding Councillor Ham and Councillor Wright there. Leaving that how that is. No, removing.
That was as is. Councillor Larder's interested.
Councillor Larder, did you want to stay in there?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Visi Community Consultative Committee, Councillor Hayes and Councillor Larder. The Canberra Region Joint Organisation, Councillor Hayes. I'm sorry, councillors, there were 2 other committees. Mrs. Jones, could you advise the other committees that we added in there? Sorry.
I can't get one. Sorry, I was having a bit of trouble getting off the mute. It was the Tumberfest Committee.
And that was under external.
Let me just open up the right version, please. Just give me one moment. Tumberfest was Councillor Ham and Wright. Where is it?
Both as delegates or as delegate and alternate?
Delegate and alternate. And the staff delegate is the tourism officer. The additional committee is the Forest Industry Council. and the delegate is Councillor Wright, and the alternate is Councillor Ham. And the third committee was the Snowy Valleys Children's Services Committee. And the delegate is Councillor Ham, and the alternate is Councillor Cross, and the staff delegate is the Manager of Community Services. And that was all of the additional ones.
Councillors, any suggested changes to any of those? Any clarifying matters? Councillor Cross?
My understanding is that the interagency meeting that's listed there is no longer a meeting of council or an advisory. It no longer meets in council. I think they opted to go privately.
Just trying to locate that one.
Gone too far. Back now.
We're in the yellow bit.
There it is.
Yeah.
So what that one's moving, is it, to?
I don't think they meet at all. Or if they do, it's a committee, an outside committee.
Much like the Children's Services Committee you were just speaking of, Kate. They get together at their own calling with their own needs.
We're moving that one out of working groups and into a
Oh, and
my administration skills aren't great there. My apologies.
And just possibly we need to add external committees with council representation, the LHAC committees for Tumut and Tumbarumba.
Great idea, Kate. Except in Tumbarumba, to be invited, I don't know if they want to.
Yeah, Kylie Bradley, I believe, is on that committee.
Murrumbidgee Health, is that okay? They determine who's the member of those committees?
Yep.
And Kylie Bradley? Yes, okay.
Wouldn't she be in under staff delegate?
Yeah.
Well done.
Okay, that covers that.
Matt, we probably should just use the title rather than the name. Coordinator Place Activation.
Okay. Any ones you want to go back over at all? We'll tidy up the formatting of this table. Okay, I'll stop the share.
Do we normally put the anyone other than councillors in there?
We do usually list in the table the staff delegate, so we've moved the coordinator of place activation into the staff delegate column. The decision on the staff delegate is a decision of mine, unless it has to be a nomination through an agency like the MLHD, of which I would choose which staff member would be nominated for that. Does that provide a bit of clarity on that matter, Mr. Deputy Mayor? Okay.
Councillor Ham?
Just in clarification, so if you're a delegate and your alternate comes along as well, and it's called for a vote.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the delegate has the vote if both are in attendance. However, if the alternate is representing because the primary delegate can't attend, then the alternate has the vote. Yeah.
Yes. So there's only one vote.
One vote.
And so one vote. So for the Australia Day committee, when there's three council people on there, there's a primary and two delegates, one vote.
One vote, yeah. Unless you wanted to change that now, we could make it two primary and one delegate. But yeah, now's your opportunity. Whatever works, you think works the best.
Just a bit of clarity there. The way that I've got it for the Australia Day committee is Councillor Benjamin and Councillor Wright as the voting.
As primary?
Together. Yep, and Councillor Cross is the alternate. Right. So there's two votes there for the Australia Day committee.
But Councillor Cross is allowed to go to the meeting and be part of the discussion.
Yep, absolutely.
You could list another alternate in the case that you have Councillor Benjamin and Councillor Wright away. That way, Councillor Cross can be assisted by someone else if those two members are away. If you want a secondary
well, I'm happy to be that.
We're adding Councillor Ham in there as the secondary alternate. I'll just share that screen again so that we're just making very sure we've got this right. So I've listed it as Councillor Cross, then Councillor Ham, to make it close. Yep, is that all right?
That's perfect.
Very good. Councillors need any more clarity on that table?
Just a small point, Matt. Should we try and communicate with the council officer directly or through the
through the chair, Councillor Pritchard? Yes, the councillor staff interaction policy allows the councillor to talk direct with the councillor staff delegate on those committees if it's about matters that fall under the terms of reference of those committees. So you're welcome to go direct to the staff delegate, and that's why we list the staff delegate here to provide clarity. So if we're talking about the Australia Day committee and you're Councillor Benjamin or Councillor Wright, then you have the ability to go and talk directly to the event activation officer about matters that are being considered by the Australia Day committee.
Oh, sure. What I'm getting at is that how do I know who should we put it through the councillor support person, all our correspondence or whatever? I mean, I wouldn't know who the event activation officer was, you know, and I'd give up in despair about trying to contact them.
I'm not allowed to.
Certainly, Councillor Pritchard, yes.
If I was
the councillor support officer, and the councillor support officer will have that officer make contact with you. That way we keep that also, the record of contact, as part of our records as well. Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you.
Just in regard to the Tumbarumba LHAC, was there any particular reason, I'm not criticising, but is there any particular reason that it was requested to have a staff member instead of a councillor represented?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Something that we can look into if you wish.
Well, the only thing that I think is a flaw in it is that, you know, the public may not have the same access to that person as the councillor. I mean, the information about who that person is or isn't readily available to, you know, that's, I mean, because the public may perceive that the councillor, you know, is their voice on that committee as well, you know, whereas they might not see it that way with the staff member.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, what we could do is nominate a councillor there and write to LHAC and ask that a councillor be nominated as the delegate. And given that MLHD is the decision maker, they would respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously up to them. It just seems odd that we've done it differently, that's all, just for consistency.
Yeah, it doesn't, I think it's a really good point. Thank you very much for considering that, Deputy Mayor.
I think that should be Councillor Ham.
With the alternate being Councillor Wright.
So I've just listed that we'll seek clarification on that matter, and if the MLHD is okay with a councillor being the member of there, then we will suggest that Councillor Ham be the delegate and Councillor Wright be the alternate. The councillor's happy with that? Okay. All right. Thank you, councillors. I'll stop that sharing now. So you have a mover and a seconder, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Wright and Councillor Smith around that, and we've updated the table so the resolution will reflect that table and we'll provide that as part of the minutes if it's resolved as such.
All right, there's nothing further. I'll put those three recommendations. All those in favour?
Can I make one more request, Mr. Chair, that we be advised from councillor representative there of all of those nominations and those committees that we're to attend, and that they be reflected in the councillor's calendar quite clearly.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I may take that one, we will provide a copy of the table in the minutes, and we will be writing to all these committee members. We'll ensure that the councillors are CC'd that are representatives on that, and where the information invitations to those meetings comes through the Councillor Support Officer, we'll place that in the calendar, whether that's direct through yourself or whether that is from yourself then to the Councillor Support Officer. It depends on the contact method there. I can't guarantee that if it doesn't come into council system that we'll have it in the calendar. So it does rely on the delegates providing that information for us to update the councillor calendar.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 10.11 is the Bushfire Local Economic Recovery Funding. Got 3 recommendations there. Councillor Benjamin, Councillor Pritchard.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry, can I just, as far as the last table was concerned, could we get a copy of that laminated sent to us all so we can put it up on our wall and contact the chairperson or the representative, because I forget who's on which committee.
We can give you a copy of that, Councillor Pritchard, no dramas at all.
Thank you. Sorry, John.
That's all right. Are you still seconding that, or was I mistaking it for the...
Yeah, I'll second it. I'll settle anything for a price.
What page are we on?
Page 74 of 143 of the electronic version.
Thank you.
All right, have the 3 recommendations there. Does anyone wish to speak? I'll put that those 3 recommendations. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 10.12, the quarterly budget review, as at 30th September. 2 recommendations. We have a mover and seconder.
Don't we do 10.11 first?
So we just did that.
Yes, we did just do 10.11, which was the bushfire local economic recovery funding.
I'm sorry. Oh, I had a question. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
What's your question?
Oh, it was just when on page 74, the talking about the bushfire impacted roads, and the last point is various roads in and around Batlow, damage being assessed with cost to be confirmed. I would like that in and around or on the fire scar, because the roads down in Yabban Creek were badly affected. The roads down Westbrook Road were badly affected. The road around Tumba, I just think we need to just, I mean, we want to have any roads affected. Roads down in Orney were affected. So various roads in and around or on the fire scar, to me, would be a better wording.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I may respond to that, that's in the content of the report. It doesn't include in the resolution as such. So we'll note the councillor's intent and agree with that, and we'll ensure that it's any roads that are fire impacted in the whole local government area that we will.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
That we're aware of. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, 10.12, the quarterly budget review. Yep. Mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Isselman, Councillor Ham. Discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour? You had a question?
No.
Councillor Isselman?
No.
All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 10.13, the statement of investments. One recommendation there. Do we have a mover? We'll get the electric cattle prod out. Councillor Isselman, Councillor Benjamin. Any discussion? Councillor Cox.
Thank you.
Councillor Cross, did you wish to speak?
If I could speak, Deputy Mayor.
Yep.
Councillor Ham, go ahead.
Thank you. I just in terms of the statements of investments, they reflect very closely with what they seem to be in quite a good place, and thank you to the CFO for your reports, which seem to be getting even more comprehensive, so I appreciate that. I just want to make a comment about the Tumbarumba pool facilities. Thank the Director of Infrastructure for showing Councillor Schmidt, Wright and I around those the other day, and it's a great job. Great to see that it's being coordinated by a Tumbarumba local, and what a huge difference it's going to make to Tumbarumba. So thank you very much there.
All right. Any further comment? All right, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The financial report on 10.14. On recommendation there, do we have a mover? Councillor Ham, Councillor Smith, any discussion?
I need to say these are being very much affected by monies coming in and out by grants. And really for the first quarter, this reflects very much which was in the quarterly report. Yeah, we're just really fortunate that so much money is coming in through bushfire recovery, and to have a 530% increase in our other income is just quite extraordinary. And by other income, I presume maybe to the CFO, that is bushfire grant money.
Apologies. Thank you, Councillor Ham. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Other income includes recovery money. In particular, this is for, we have a very large position in there that is for the Batlow Cannery demolition that we only received in this financial year when the demolition happened last financial year.
So this is a huge question. You probably don't know the answer, but how are we travelling financially after the bushfires? Do you think we, with the help from Resilience New South Wales and whatever, do you think we are, they are really actually covering the cost, or are we going to be bearing the cost of the bushfire for decades?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you, Councillor Ham. We have received a very large percentage of the expenditure that we incurred, but we have not received everything, and there will be costs that will not get covered by external funding. But it's nowhere near at the point where we were, let's say, in April or May in last financial year. Going forward, the big issues that we are having is mostly related to resourcing internally. Like when we have to claim for disaster funding, we do need resources from the governance team, from the finance team, and those costs are definitely not covered.
Of course. So in writing grants and lobbying and advocacy, and yeah, okay. Well, it's working, whoever's doing it, you're doing it very well.
Thank you,
All right.
Councillor
Anything
Ham.
further?
If I may comment to that, a lot of this is about the advocacy the councillors have with the various state members and ministers that come through, our alignment with regional New South Wales strategic documents, and looking at the DFRA guidelines and ensuring we're making a very careful risk assessment as we move through this about what is funded and what's not, and ensuring we know what the answers to those are before we conduct those works. And I think the staff have done a fantastic job there, but very well supported by the councillors, and a very good understanding from the politicians at the state and federal level as well.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, if there's no further debate, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. All right, the quarterly NCIF grants report, 10.15. Have a mover? Councillor Isselman and then Councillor Ham. Any comments?
No, I can't make. Thank you. Pleased with the report.
I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour?
Before you do,
Councillor Cross.
I have to point out that there's been considerable discussion about the entry signs to towns, and not always positive. It's caused a lot of conversation. I would like to just point out the Taubingo Progress Association is looking to get a sum of money so that they can have on the back of the signs, "Thank you for visiting Taubingo." So I think that's a really positive move to that. And I have been telling everyone that the signs were done way back with the administrator. So trying to get that message out.
I just go to comment that I just read through this, and I know we've just gone through the Boundaries Commission, but it's just such a report to see how much amalgamation has actually cost, whether you're for it or against it. It's quite an interesting document just to see the expense of it all.
All right, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 11.1, the City's Power Partnership Pledge. 2 recommendations with a number of subsections. Councillor Cross. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ham. Councillor Cross. And you're on mute. Yep.
Given that we're establishing a climate change adaptation policy, I think this is an absolutely no-brainer to be part of. We will have access to world experts about how we can mitigate against climate change. It's just a great outcome.
Councillor Isselman.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just the point where it says efficiency rollout of energy efficient lighting across the municipality. Do we use that term municipality or do we call ourselves council?
Through the chair, if I may, Deputy Mayor, I think the terms are interchangeable at this stage. So I think the intent is covering across the whole local government area.
And my second part of the question is, what time frame are we looking at for the rollout of the energy efficient lighting across the municipality?
If I may refer this one to Mr. Couch, I believe that the program has actually recently been brought forward.
Yeah, correct. Through your Deputy Mayor, Councillor Isselman, we're hoping the latest advice we got from Essential Energy is that they'll kick off prior to Christmas. Haven't had final confirmation of that, but I'll let councillors know when we get it. So definitely delivered this financial year. It's just a matter of, you know, we're going to start before Christmas or straight after, that we're yet to confirm.
All right, if there's nothing further on that, I'll those recommendations. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 11.2, the roadside bin harmonisation. Councillor Smith and Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Smith?
I didn't actually put my hand up there, but...
oh, okay. Well, it must have been from the previous...
Yes. Anyway, I'm happy to put that forward. It's obviously time to do this as one SVC to get it all tidied up, and the bins are 13 years old. I understand that the bins will be recycled so that they're not being dumped somewhere in landfill, but they're going to be reused in recycled form.
I was just wondering what tune they're going to be playing.
Step right in.
Councillor Cross and Councillor Ham have a question, I believe.
Yeah, a question for Heinz. Heinz, just noting, you've said in the report that stolen bins will be detected. How is that going to happen, please?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of aspects to that, Councillor Cross. The new bins are normally barcoded and attached to an address. So if they do go missing or and finish up at the other end of town or something like that, when the truck picks them up, it will be able to identify that bin doesn't belong at that location. And also by rolling out newly branded bins, it enables us to identify bins that are being put out in the street but aren't being paid for by the ratepayer. So yeah, so it'll help us better manage those two issues.
That's great. I really like that. And there'll be no cost to the community with this rollout?
Correct, no cost to the community. The fundings, it'll be funded through money that's available to us in the waste reserve. So no additional cost.
So we're looking at option number 3.
Yes, through Deputy Mayor, Councillor Ham, yes, very much. We did a cost analysis of 3 different options and established that, yeah, replacing the bins that have come to the end of the useful life in one bulk arrangement, is long-term, whole of life cost, the most effective way of doing it.
And when, sorry, Julia, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, so we have $1.081 million in our reserves. Sorry, through you, Deputy Mayor, the 1.081 million is the total whole of life cost. The actual cost to undertake this replacement is 188,000. Yeah, so and we do have that in the reserves.
We do have that in the reserve. And yeah, but just to understand the whole of life costs, we run the cost across the life of the bin. But yeah, so the upfront capital purchase is higher than the other 2 options. You'll see that you'll see that in there. The other 2 options are far cheaper. But when you take into account the whole of life cost, it's a better way of doing it by doing the full replacement.
That's really well presented.
Having a very, very damaged bin, when can I expect my new bin, please?
Very good question, Councillor Cross. We're still finalising the timelines. We're talking, trying to link it in together with the delivery of the FOGO project as well, which sort of mid next year. I'd expect we'll be looking at having rolling out the bins, but very much, if residents have a bin that's damaged now and needs replaced now, we do have arrangements in place to do that as well. So you don't need to wait for the rollout. We will still be replacing bins ad hoc as needed. Yep.
I just think it's a great community service, and it's a great way of spending the reserve funds that are there to provide this great service for our community.
Mr. Cass, I know I know that CEO will say this is a very long bow, but I'm running the show today, so you can. The mayor sent me a text the other day with a council that was using its garbage trucks to map out potholes. Is that something that we can look at? There's something built into the trucks that apparently maps out where the potholes are and tells the officers where to basically go, so that all that intensive labour is worked out, and as the garbage trucks are doing the run, it maps it.
Yeah, I'm aware of that technology. I've seen it used in regard to tree maintenance as well. So, where you've got, because the trucks are running very close to the curb to pick up the bins, and where they're hooking up in trees, they can automatically log a maintenance request through a tablet in the truck. And I can, very much see how you could also do that for potholes. At the moment, our truck drivers will just give our maintenance guys a call and let them know that some work's needed. So if they identify a tree that needs to be lopped so they can get their truck through, or potholes or other defects, they will call those in, and that seems to work for us at the moment.
The other issue too is stormwater drains. Is there any way that they can be also tagged into that system? Because they get really stuffed up with leaves.
Through the deputy mayor, Councillor Cross. I sort of would hope that would get picked up by our street sweeper. as well. So we do run the street sweeper around quite regularly. When you have leaf drops, seasonal leaf drops, it is hard to keep up, and at times, we do get inquiries from residents advising us of excessive leaves over a drain that need to be cleaned up and that sort of thing. So we respond that at an ad hoc arrangement. There'd be no reason why our truck drivers couldn't advise us of that as well.
It's all about Big Brother coming closer and closer. That's the worry. Soon they'll be counting how many beer bottles we have in each bin.
In the recycling bin, I hope, Councillor Pritchard.
All right, if there's nothing further on that, I'll put those motions. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 11.3, proposal for the declaration of new off-leash areas. I have 3 recommendations. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I like this. I'm a dog fan.
Just need a seconder first, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ham. Off you go, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'm a dog fan, and it's great to have designated areas that are off leash, recognising that, of course, you still have to have your animals under control in such an area. But it's important to be able to have that in every town, not just in the main areas.
May I just make a comment, Mr. Mayor? Mr. Deputy Mayor, Mr. Chairman. One of the Billa Park is the one in Tumut, and lots of people walk along the Riverwalk not knowing they were entering a dog leash area. We just need a few more signs there to tell people that it is a dog leash area so they can be more aware.
We have actually two, one at the entrance and one at Maryvale Street. Both of those, I actually asked for them to be changed so that they actually would say that they were off-leash areas.
Well, it's along people walking along the Riverwalk.
We did have one there that said that dogs should be on leash, but I did ask for that to be removed because it is an off-leash area, and also because it actually interfered with that beautiful landscape. So I would be very loath to have more signs there. I think just having those at the entrances highlights the fact, because people either come through that way, either of those ways. And I just make the comment that one day we had 20 dogs down there off leash, and it was wonderful chaos. All the dogs were beautifully behaved and had an absolutely fabulous time. It's just wonderful to watch them socialising and interacting with each other and with people.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, could I just make a comment from the point of view of people with disabilities? So companion dogs and guide dogs can't go anywhere where there's an off-leash area if it's not fenced. So that does have an impact on some people who have got a disadvantage in our community, because they are not allowed, if they go anywhere near an off-leash area that's not fenced, their dog is taken off them.
Wow.
What you're saying, Councillor Isserman, but there are plenty of other parks where people with a guide dog can go. So I would be really loath to see a fence, particularly around Billa Park, because it's one of our most beautiful parks.
All right. Nothing further. I'll put that. All those in favour, 3 recommendations. Those against? Councillor Isserman, I'm just confirming that you are for. Yes?
Okay.
Oh, that's unanimous. It's a bit slow at this end.
Not must be awfully slow.
Okay, 11.4. Now, Councillor Isselman, is this the, yep.
Yes, I'll just move
Bye.
Councillor.
11.4 is a request from Batlow Rotary to establish a men's shed on the former Batlow cannery site. Councillor Isselman has declared a pecuniary interest here and opted to leave the room for debate and the vote, which the CEO will arrange.
Councillor Isselman's now left the meeting.
Okay, do we have a mover and a seconder for the 5 recommendations? Councillor Wright, you're moving. Councillor Ham, you're seconding. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say what a great initiative this is for Batlow. I think the bushfire recovery and just general health of the men's sheds, I think it's a fantastic thing, the whole proposal. I really got to commend them, the Batlow community, for fighting for this and working so hard on it. You know, I've seen how good the men's shed is in Tumbarumba, so I think we should fully support this in every way we can.
Yep.
If I could just ask, where on the Batlow, it's probably, I haven't seen it, Batlow cannery site is it?
Through the chair, I might refer that to Mr. Holton.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Chair or Deputy Mayor, it's located adjacent to the former administration building for the cannery with the red roof on Currajong Avenue.
So it's not that newer building?
Yes, it is.
Not the newer.
It is the most, yeah, it's probably the only structure remaining on the site.
Oh, right.
And
that'd be a lovely venue.
Well, the proposal is to put build a shed immediately next, adjacent to that, and use the former administrative site as an ancillary facility for other community activities, as well as providing toilets and amenities.
Excellent. I support it.
Councillor Smith.
In our earlier discussion today, I had some confusion around those things that Mr. Holton has just said, and looking into the document more closely, I now understand that they will be leasing that whole building, not just making use of the toilets in it. So they will be leasing that whole building and an area of land adjacent to it where the garage will be built. Looking at the plans, the appearance of that building is quite different to the actual, what we call, or is generally referred to as the Pizza Hut building. Is there a chance that that could be amended to be a little bit more harmonious as far as the surrounding is concerned?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I suppose any building shed that is to be built there will be subject to a DA and CC process. So those matters can be picked up at that stage.
So the illustration that we have on our plans here today are not necessarily what is going to be built there.
That's the illustrations that are with the submission provided by Batlow Rotary are indicative. As I said, there was another process to go through in terms of gaining approvals for any shed to be built there.
Right. It'd be nice if they were, you know, somewhat harmonious with that original Pizza Hut building, because it's fairly iconic in the town.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, can I just ask if there'll be any cost to council regarding the proposal?
Thank you, Councillor Cross, and through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I guess the cost to council is loss of opportunity in terms of other commercial activities that could take place on that site. The recommendation is quite clear that all maintenance and other costs be met by the lessee, and that was in fact part of the proposal received from the Rotary Club of Batlow.
And there is no other interested parties in leasing any of that area?
Not that particular area. There hasn't been any other formal approach made to council to lease that portion of the former cannery site.
All right. There's no further questions, and I'll put those recommendations to council. All those in favour? Against? So that's carried unanimously.
Deputy Mayor, I'll just bring Councillor Isselman back. Councillor Isselman's now back. We can continue the meeting.
Thanks, Councillor Isselman. I can advise you that in relation to item 11.4, Council resolved unanimously to support the recommendations 1 to 5. (11.5) Update on the status of the Rosewood Community Shed. 3 recommendations. Have a mover and seconder. Councillor Wright. Councillor Ham, did I see you?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think reading this and having attended their meeting the other night is just a bit early, and we'll once we work out what's happening with the Rosewood Golf Club, then we can do something different maybe, or maybe they will, or whatever. But I don't think we have any other choice on this one.
And I think it's a good example of, as painful as getting all these committees together and going through all this process, it has shown some of the faults that have been in our system with our governance, and things that we thought were ground weren't, though, somebody else's or whatever. So I feel a bit for the committee. They're very hardworking and they're very dedicated to Rosewood, and it's a pity this has to drag on a bit for them, but I thank them for their patience.
Yeah, and I think it's really not our fault, if you like, and we'll continue to support them and see how we can help out along the way.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no further discussion, I'll put those 3 recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. All right, 11.6, and just note here that Councillor Benjamin does have a non-pecuniary interest, but is staying for the discussion and the vote. Have 2 recommendations there.
There was councillors' alternate discussion in the workshop session that I've put some words around. Would you like me to display both the staff recommendation and the alternate from the discussion before you have a mover?
Yep.
Share that. So the officer recommendation is in black and the alternative from the workshop is in blue. Would you like me to read that out, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Oh, not unless anyone is requiring any clarification on it. Is everyone happy with that?
So what we're asking for there in number 2 is for the council group to come back and tell us why they've made that decision. Is that what it is about?
So through the
further assessment? I mean, what are we asking them for?
Well, I'd be inclined to move them and then we could discuss it. So perhaps move one or the other and then.
Okay.
So what are we moving? The blue?
Up to councillors.
But that in itself is its own discussion.
Either we make the black recommendation 2 different recommendations, or we go with the blue.
There's nothing stopping councillors from making an amendment to the initial recommendation.
If I may, Mr. Deputy Mayor, council, to have a discussion on something, you need to move something. So you could move just item 1 of the second matter and then discuss whether you wanted to add item 2 or reword item 2 or whatever in that discussion.
Yeah,
Need
sounds like a
something
good idea.
to move first, that's all.
Councillor Ham, are you moving point 1 of the blue?
I am indeed.
Do we have a seconder for point 1 of the blue section? I can't see, so.
So, Mr. Mayor, is it inappropriate for me to
Councillor
say?
Isserman?
Is it inappropriate for me to say I'd moved 1 and 2 in the black?
You've got a mover of point 1, so Councillor Isserman, you'd have to wait until we've got a seconder here before we could make a decision about an amendment or a foreshadowed motion or whatever it be. Yeah. So we need to decide on a seconder for item 1 or let the item lapse.
Is it inappropriate to go into committee before we do these moves?
You need a mover and a seconder before you can go into committee. Yeah. So Councillor Wright has got his hand up there.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder.
Yeah, however, at the moment it's showing that we're moving and seconding 1 and 2, but we're not. We're only
Just
moving number 1.
Yeah.
We're receiving the report. Full stop.
I'll say
No,
sorry.
no,
You're
not in
moving
the
it on
blue, in the
first.
black.
You're moving that in the black, rightio? Okay.
In the black.
All right, that's what I
I'll
wanted.
second that.
Oh,
Already
hold on.
seconded.
All right, so we've now got confirmation of 1, received the report on DA 2020-0247, proposed dwelling with attached garage shed, Bomboli Avenue, Bomboli, and it's been moved by Councillor Ham and seconded by Councillor Wright. So
And now could I ask if we could go into committee?
we can do that. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Isserman. Councillor Ham, do you wish to start off?
Yes. Oh, I feel it was, thank you very much to the 2 people who presented on this. I can understand your passion and your concerns about this very much indeed. I am learning about this. I'll be interested to hear what the other councillors say, and I may at this stage go towards deferring until I have more information and can actually visualise what I'm making a decision about. Over to others.
Is it possible just to get the tiles back up, CEO? Because it just, yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
No, it's fine. Okay, Councillor Ham, any further discussion? Councillor Benjamin.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to just point on this for the whole community as well that have properties on floodplains. It's just really important with this particular report that we've got that we're mindful, and obviously we want to compromise, and we want to help anyone that's actually wanting to build on floodplains, that we want to make the right decision. Because obviously with this particular report that's in, there's two other lots that are going into, one's actually in council and one's just about to go into council, and they're side by side. So we've just got to, I think we need to just compromise and make the right decision moving forward for these residents in the community.
Any further speakers?
Oh, yes, Kate.
Councillor
Okay. Oh, thank you. Yes, I support what Councillor Benjamin has just said. I think it's really important for us to not be negative and not be the naysayers of these situations. We can look around our whole Snowy Valleys Council and see an enormous number of buildings that have been built in floodplains and are continuing to be built in flood areas. Let's just look at Tumbarumba's main business district and see how often that floods, and the caravan park at Tumbarumba. We just built it there. And at the same time, we're going to disadvantage an incredibly strong investment person who's done all the diligence, the due diligence of looking at where they are and what they're involved in. And I just don't think that we need to consider anymore. The council DA application has been recommended to refuse consent. We only need to remove that word refuse, and these people can go ahead. And I really think that's what we need to do. We are aware of the possibility of flood. We are aware of the fact that this could be a floodplain. But at the same time, these are properties that are very sought after in our community. And from what I heard from the young man who wishes to build this property for his family, he's very conscious of where he's putting it and very aware of the issues involved, and we have it on record of what he has said. So we are not in any high risk situation at this point in time. So I think we should just remove the word refuse on point 2 and move on.
Any further comments from you?
Councillor Cross got a question there.
No, I totally agree with what Councillor Isman is saying, that this man is fully well aware of where he is building it. He looks to have made every concession to mitigate against the floods or fires, whatever might come his way. I also note that Bomboli Avenue is the ingress and whatever, in and out of getting in and out of Bomboli Creek could be an issue. However, we have heard from the Deputy Mayor that he also is impacted by floods in that area, and it impacts on other people in that area. So we were assured by the applicant that he has considered all of that and how he is going to take care of his very precious stock and family. So I really feel that we should support this application.
Councillor Smith has a question there to Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Sorry?
Councillor Smith has his hand up for a question there.
Councillor Smith.
Yes, I lived in that area for a time at Mundongo School and coming in and out of town. There were no major floods during my stay there, but I do have some understanding of the area. So as other speakers have said, this particular applicant has done a lot of homework. He's not building a house flat on the ground. The plans are quite clear that the lowest, the building itself, the residential building itself, will be 2 point something, at least 2.2 meters above flood level. That's the highest flood level. yes, it's going to be difficult if there is a 1 in 100-year flood. That if we need to get in and help people. But look, North Wagga is another area that I'm very familiar with, and having been involved in the relief effort at North Wagga after the 1974 disastrous floods, I know what happens with floods, but I also can see that this particular development is designed to avoid those problems. And North Wagga, they've lifted a lot of houses up to a level not anywhere near as high as he intends to build his house. So I don't see any further reason to discuss the matter. I think he has made his appeal to us as councillors. And on that basis, having respect to what the Executive Director of Community has said earlier on, yeah, I think we should just simply refuse this particular petition and say, take the word refuse out and give permission for that to happen.
Can I just say that in relation to this, I agree with all the comments wholeheartedly. As I've said, I actually live out beyond this road, so the access and egress for me is an issue in a flood as well. And there's been times where I've had to stay in town to maintain my work as a result of it. So it's not something that's uncommon to people living in that area. In fact, we have obviously allowed previously a number of habitats in closer proximity to the river than this actual development. The staff have obviously found that it doesn't fit in the hole, and there's a few rough edges, which is fair enough. That's how they have to interpret it. But I think it's our responsibility to apply common sense. And to me, this guy's demonstrated that he has done his due diligence, that he has acted responsibly. He's demonstrated that he has a full understanding of what the scenarios may well be. And I agree that we should grant consent with two conditions today. And those conditions be that he provides an evacuation management plan in conjunction with the State Emergency Service, which he's already advised he's spoken to them about. And the second consent condition, in my view, should stipulate that if he sells the property, that he has to provide that in the contract in whatever form to inform the people who are purchasing the property that that is an issue that was raised, and that flood mitigation evacuation plan, or whatever you want to determine it is attached to that property as a known risk, so that council provides its responsibility in relation to it.
Would we be?
I was just going to ask, before I make my decision, I'd really like to hear from the Executive Director of Community and Corporate Service and what he had to say about it, and why at this stage was council thinking of refusing.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, the council officers have assessed the application and determined that it doesn't meet the objectives of the Tumut Local Environment Plan on a number of reasons, but primarily the access and egress to the site during the 1 in 100 year flood, with the entry to the property being under 1.2 metres under such conditions. So the council assessing officer brought it to council earlier rather than later without seeking further information on the basis that they felt it didn't meet the local environment plan. So the alternative recommendation or the alternative resolution that's been proposed that which suggested allowing for further assessment of the application in order to bring it back to council with the full range of matters maybe addressed in terms of the building's ability, an engineering report showing the building's ability to withstand floodwaters, given that the floodwaters it is in the hazardous flood zone, it's closer to the river, and a range of technical matters to be dealt with, and then the appropriate conditions applied to any recommendation around the issuing of a DA.
Thank you.
So have they already asked, sorry, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, through you, having gone to the situation of saying to refuse the application and bringing it to us, those questions haven't been raised with the actual owner yet?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the officers in this case determined that given that it was in their professional opinion that the DA did not meet the objectives of the LEP, determined rather than put the applicant to the time and expense of addressing those technical issues, that it come to council to determine whether council would support a notice of refusal, or the alternative and the options listed in the council report is to submit defer making a decision or a determination on the matter to allow the officers a more complete assessment to bring it back to the council so that the matter can be appropriately conditioned up.
If I might just be a little bit so bold, then we should have waited another month before we saw this report, and then they would have been able to address those issues, and we would be making a report on those issues.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, and with greatest respect, it wasn't that the key issue remains for the council in terms of the LEP. The Chairman Local Environment Plan is the access and egress to the site, which won't be addressed under any of those. There's no technical way to address the 1.2 metres of water over the road, preventing access and egress to the site. But, the matters pertaining to the building's ability to deal with being in a flood, that can be built into the conditions of the plan of the DA when issued. So the professional opinion of the officers is that the access and egress is the primary matter in relation to this.
So Mr. Mayor, through you, it doesn't matter. We're making a decision today on what is the access and egress. It doesn't matter what the building is. That's where it stops, and we can make a decision right now. We've got the information.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we're not going to allow a house to be built that doesn't meet the building code. It wouldn't pass the inspections. So, I'm not sure what that's going to achieve. I mean, I certainly don't want. It's not my plan from our undertakings here to set this poor guy on some slippery slope of having to get some $100,000 report from some water theorist in back of Kickatinalong that's going to set him back another 12 months and drive everyone mad. We know the water is an issue. Surely we can approve the thing subject to him meeting the technical requirements to build in that area. I mean, surely that could be done.
Mr. Mayor, I have no problem with it as regarding the access and exit of the property, because we're not going to get sudden floods that are going to raise the water level immediately. There's plenty of warning, and I don't see that as a problem. The only thing is if whatever we say today will be a precedent for other people to build on the floodplain, and whether you should put some limit on the area that's built up so you don't get some blockage of the river or diversion of the river. Right? I'm not sure that's out of my realm, but I don't see any basic problem with it as long as it's all sensible. And, if you drive along the Chinook Plains area, you can see where they've had houses that still have the remnants of the dairies, which were two-story to get them above the original floods, which are now mitigated by the Blowing Dam to a large extent. I do remember as a kid here seeing the river flood there with bloated cattle and fences and trees and things all going down in a terrible, frightening rush. But to a young kid, I suppose it all was frightening. But I just think in this day and age, with the Blowing Dam and the warnings that we get about floods, I don't see that there's any threat to human life in building there. And it's the sort of guy that'll bring a lot of work to the town, a lot of employment to the town, and I'd support it.
Mr. Deputy
Isn't this
Mayor.
why we have an LEP, so we have guidelines?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, could I make a comment, please? Councillors are looking to work towards an approval. Would recommend that we don't just approve it, that we actually ask for a further report back with appropriate conditions if council was to incline to approve the site, given the discussion that we've had today, rather than to just go for a broad scoping approval. As Mr. Holton has indicated, it is a newly lodged application, so it hasn't been in with council for a long period of time. That would enable us to have some further discussions with the owner and his consultant who have presented to council, and we could come back to the December council meeting with a set of conditions that might be appropriate to approving the development, and council could consider those conditions, and if you're unhappy with those conditions, we could work through the changing and the wording to the conditions. But a blanket approval would not be a recommended way to go forward.
I'd be happy with that as long as it was at the December meeting.
But didn't you just say that the conditions of building and so on already exists? I mean, isn't what we're looking at is the access and so on that's there anyway? That's not going to change, as Paul has said. That's not going to change. That doesn't matter what your building design's like. That access and egress are still going to remain the same. So that's all we're making a decision on.
But there's also the issue of how the building can withstand the flood that comes through. So I think.
But that would be part of the whole building design acceptance, not
any detail about that. I think that's what you're getting at, isn't it?
Is there no detail on that in the submission?
Yeah.
Mr. Holton, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, certainly. That was a matter that we would have been, under further assessment of the application, we would be seeking further information from the applicants for that.
That was my understanding. But the getting in and out, he's fully well aware of that, and as we talked about before, floods are not going to come up and down quickly. He'll have time to get out. So I would prefer to see that we get more information about how the building will withstand the floods and come back to the December meeting with that.
Call's turn.
Well, I don't know why we can't approve it subject to him providing an engineer's report that says it can withstand the thing. If an engineer says it's going to withstand it, then it's not for us to say to the engineer that it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, we could already say that now, subject to him providing that information. I mean, that's not rocket science.
I agree.
Councillors, can I advise you that you're running a higher risk process, approving it with some information that you don't know what the end result's going to be. 4-week delay, and we do have an early December meeting, so it's not even 4 weeks. It's running on the 10th of December. Isn't an unreasonable amount of time to properly consider this matter and come back with recommendations that are very clear and conditions that are clear around Council's intent to approve this development. We've heard very clearly what you've had to say today and what the consultants have had to say. And I believe that with a bit more discussion there, that we could work through something, because otherwise the conditions might not actually suit the consultant or the owner of that particular development as well. So we would be better working through that together and bringing a report back in December.
I totally agree with the CEO.
I agree.
We shouldn't be mucking around arguing about something we don't know about. Let him just come back with a proper report and recommendation.
Councillors, I have, while we've had this discussion, drafted up a little bit addition to that, but I do note that Councillor Smith has been waiting to talk for a while.
My main concern about this, Mr. Chair, is that this man is needing to get on with the business of building his house, if it's going to be built, and that we do, whatever we do decide, we don't delay a decision unnecessarily and try and expedite this as soon as possible, bearing in mind that there are other dwellings already in that area, in that floodplain. There are other applications before and coming to council for that same area. We're dealing with a bigger picture than just one man building a house, and we need to get it right. We need to get it right as soon as possible.
Councillor Isselman.
When I look at the attachments that we have in front of us here for this report, there are so many plans, so many elements of this presentation. He's done a flood risk assessment, he's got his septic design, he's got flood reports, and he's got site surveys and environmental effects and his site plan, and so much that our council team must have looked at before they came to decide no, because of the egress of the actual site. Surely they've not looked at all that at the moment. Surely they will have looked at it. So we're still only deciding whether it's just to do with the outcome and in. I mean, there's a lot of information there.
If I may just make one other comment through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Whilst the access and egress is a very, very clear issue from a planning perspective, and like having people residing in an area that they can't get in and out of, as has been sort of pointed out in the report to council, the area is considered a high hazard flood area, and further into the report, it also notes that our development control plan does prohibit development in high hazard flood areas. So there's a whole range of matters there that require further investigation and reporting back to council. Knowing what council's view on the matter is, it would be a matter of bringing such a report back to council and addressing some of those matters, so that when council made a determination on this matter, it did so with the full range of facts at their disposal.
Councillors, we could also supply some risk evaluation of approval with conditions in that report as well.
Sounds good.
Would you like me to share the screen, Deputy Mayor, with an alternative?
That's fine.
So what I've got suggested there is a little bit in purple down there. So the defer making a determination for the DA and request council staff report back to council at the December 2020 meeting with the conditions appropriate for council to consider the matter if council is inclined to approve the DA. If councillors were inclined to go down that path, the movers and seconders of the original motion would have to withdraw that, and we would have to put up an alternative motion. Given you're in committee, councillors may wish to discuss.
What's your views?
I'm happy to withdraw and have that. That's fine, because it's not saying no. It's saying with conditions for us to consider the matter. We're not saying no, we refuse consent. It's giving us an opportunity to be positive about what we want to do and say, look, we really want to help you. Yes, we want you to have it, but we just need to consider a few more things. Personally, I would just like to take out refuse and let him go ahead, but never mind. I'll accept that.
I agree with
I like that
Councillor.
recommendation. Yeah.
I agree with that. With that.
I withdraw the motion. I'm seconded. I can't. Yes, I can.
Stop sharing the screen so the Mayor Deputy Mayor can see
So,
everyone clearly.
Move we out of committee.
Out of committee first. Yes.
Yep.
All right. Councillor Isselman's moving we go out of committee. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ross. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Okay, and then it's Councillor Ham and Isselman, I think, is it?
Yep.
So are you prepared, councillors, to
remove my seconding.
Yep.
So you're not going to receive the report at all. So we just don't even receive it and we look at it in December.
Yeah.
Good plan.
Take
Okay,
that.
I withdraw mine as well. Yep.
Okay, so we'll just need a mover for the new resolution, which do you want that back on the board or are you happy to move it? Councillor Wright, you happy to move it? And Councillor Isselman. Any further discussion? All right, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Is anyone against it?
No.
No. All right, that's unanimous.
Could be here till midnight.
Could we maybe just, I don't know whether it's appropriate, Mr. CEO, but if there is anything that is flagged in that report that you think will be require some further work, do you think that could be flagged at an earlier workshop or something with us so that we can work through it?
Councillors will, once we've got that work through with the developer and the owner, we will circulate a draft report around for councillors' consideration. And we will, if needs be, run a formal gathering with the developer, the owner, the relevant council officers and the councillors that are interested in having that discussion.
All right, 12.1, minutes of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, 3 recommendations. Mover. Councillor Ham, Councillor
Cross.
Benjamin. Any discussion?
I'd like to refer mine over to Councillor Cross, who was actually at the meeting.
There were no issues raised or nothing flagged. The financial statements were good. So the ARIC were happy.
All right, all those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. All right, Batlow Development League, 12.2, 3 recommendations. You have a mover? Councillor Isselman. Councillor Cross. Anyone wish to speak?
If I may. Is that possible for them, for what they've mentioned there, funds allocated for the pedestrian crossing to be moved to the toilet block? I mean, is that just pie in the sky stuff? Is that happening?
If I may, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the project that was originally approved by the administrator, that is within the general scope of that. So it is possible, so it'll be a refurbishment of that facility. Mr. Korsch may wish to provide further comment on that. Or not.
Just while we're waiting for Mr. Korsch. So the pedestrian crossing is not going to go ahead now?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Isselman, my understanding of the crossing is that once we get the 40-kilometre speed zone sorted, we'll then be able to review and see if we can get the crossing in, but we will be looking at securing funding for that. So in order to meet the timelines for the delivery of the funding that we previously had, we've reallocated it to the toilets because we just weren't going to get the crossing in the time that was allowable to us. We're still hoping to get the crossing in, but it's on the speed zone and also funded.
So talking of crossings in Batlow, the one from the Toc H to the school needs a bit of a revamp, a bit of a paint. Just looking really hard to see.
That long bow being drawn again, Councillor Ham?
We were just on the topic.
Any
I'm happy with
questions? Yep.
Nothing further? All right, all those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 12.3, the minutes of the Cancoban Couva. Councillor Ham. Councillor Benjamin. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ham?
I've just got three very quick points. One is congratulations to Dean Cameron, who's going to get that store up and open, which is just brilliant for that shopping precinct, which looks so fantastic now it's been redone. Probably, I'm not sure, it might be for the Executive Director of Community and Corporate. I would like to know what's happening from these minutes with the Country Club and the Cancoban Hall at the moment.
Mr. CEO.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'll start with the Cancoban Hall, and I just advise that I met with the president of the Tumbarumba Chamber of Commerce recently. He has accepted he and the committee have accepted a tender for the removal of the asbestos in the building, which is well within the budget that they have for the funding that they received. So that project is about to begin, which is really good news. In respect to the Cancoban Country Club, as I understand it, the debt that they had with the Bank of New South Wales, I think, was written off by the bank, and council is still awaiting for resolution and the issuing of titles in respect of the allotment that council agreed to purchase in respect of the decision that was made to purchase that block of land to assist with the country club's financial situation.
Okay, so, yeah. So really, it's nothing to do with us, is it?
The country club council doesn't own or operate. It's operated entirely by the committee, who are still incorporated at this time, and but there is a small matter of the issuing of titles, so that council may just end its involvement. I think we still there are still rates and things like that the country club needs to address, issues around rates that they may need to address with council.
Lovely, thank you. Happy to move. Oh, sorry, over to Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith.
Yes, another item in relation to Cancoban, the only coffee shop was shut down recently, Trev's Place, and those people that are going to operate the new store have stepped in, and they are opening it and running it 6 days a week full time, extended hours to benefit the visitors and the people of Cancoban. And I think that's a great thing for them to do. So we look forward to them getting their business up and running. And then I don't know what will happen to the coffee shop, but it very likely will continue on in some form or another.
All right, if there's nothing further, then I'll put that, all those in favour? Against? That's carried. All right, that brings to a close the ordinary section of the council meeting. The Local Government Act provides that council may close to the public that part of the meeting that deals with matters of a confidential nature. Section 10(2) lists such matters. The grounds on which a meeting is closed to the public must be specified in the decision to close the meeting and recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Where councillors participate in meetings remotely by an audio-visual link, they continue to be obliged to protect any confidential information considered at the meeting. Where meetings are closed to the public under Section 10A of the Act, councillors should ensure that they participate in the meeting in a location where it cannot be seen or heard by anyone else. We have 3 matters to be considered in confidential. 13.1, commercial works update. Late reports L2 RFT 2020-08 construction of Clarks Hill Toomer road cutting, bushfire damage at Maragal, and L1 RFT 2020-11 Talbingo boat ramp floating pontoon. Can I have a recommendation moved by councillors to move into confidential to consider those 3 matters? Councillor Cross and Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That's unanimous.
I would like to leave the room for a few moments.